Have you ever wondered how all these new AI apps can suddenly use any tool or talk to any database, almost like magic? Well, it's not magic. Turns out there's a protocol that's quietly becoming one of the most fundamental pieces of AI infrastructure out there. We're talking about the Model Context Protocol, or MCP. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what it is and why it's such a massive deal.
So to really get why MCP is a game changer, you have to rewind the clock a little bit. Picture the Wild West of AI development, just a totally chaotic landscape where trying to connect an AI model to the tools it needed to be useful, well, it was an absolute nightmare.
And this was the one question that was driving developers crazy. You want to connect your fancy new AI model to Slack, or GitHub, or maybe your company's internal database? Guess what? You had to build a custom bridge from scratch. Then you want to try a different AI model with that same tool? Yep, you got to build another custom bridge. It was this painful one-to-one problem for every single thing.
This mess has a name, actually. The industry calls it the NXM integration problem. For every n number of tools and m number of models, you literally needed to build n times m custom adapters. The complexity just explodes. It creates this maintenance burden that is just completely, totally unsustainable for any dev team.
Honestly, this image of a spaghetti monster is the perfect way to think about it. Developers were stuck building this tangled mess of code. Every single strand was a custom, super brittle connection. So if just one little API changed somewhere, a whole section of the monster would just break. It was a miserable way to build software, and it was seriously holding back the entire field of agentic AI. You know, the AIs that can actually do things in the world.
But then, out of all that chaos, a really elegant solution started to emerge. A single standard designed to replace the mess. And the industry has come up with the perfect nickname for it, the USB-C for AI.
And that is the Model Context Protocol, MCP. At its heart, it's a super simple open standard. It just asks the question, what if we just stop building all these custom adapters? What if any AI app could just plug into any tool from any server using one single universal interface?
And this right here just nails the difference. The old way was like that junk drawer we all have, you know, the one overflowing with a dozen different tangled up cables that you can never find. The MCP way is that one clean, powerful USB-C cable that just works with everything.
You know, the analogy actually goes even deeper. Just like how USB-C can handle power, data, and video all through one single port, MCP unifies the three key things an AI needs to interact with the world. You've got tools, which are actions it can take, resources, which is data it can read, and prompts, which are just reusable templates. One standard, many connections. Simple as that.
Okay, so how does this thing actually work under the hood? It's surprisingly simple, which honestly is a huge reason for its incredible success.
I want you to think of it like a team of 3 specialists working together. First, you have the host. That's the main AI application, maybe a chatbot or a coding assistant. It's the orchestrator, the boss. The host manages a bunch of clients, and each client is like a dedicated, secure messenger that talks to exactly one server. And that server, that's the specialist on the team. It's a thing providing a specific tool, like access to a calendar or a file system.
And this whole architecture is built on some really brilliant design ideas. First, it's super easy to build with, so anyone can create a new tool server. It's also composable, which means you can snap tools together like Lego bricks. And crucially, it's sandboxed. A server can't snoop on the whole AI conversation or see what other servers are doing, which is a massive win for security. And finally, it's extensible, so you can add new features without breaking all the old stuff.
So because MCP solved such a painful problem, and it did it so elegantly, what happened next was, well, pretty much inevitable. An absolute explosion of adoption across the entire tech industry.
Just look at this number. Over 110 million SDK downloads every single month. Folks, that's not just hype, that's foundational infrastructure. When huge developer frameworks like OpenAI's Agents SDK and LangChain automatically pull in MCP as a dependency, you know a standard has truly officially arrived.
And the timeline just shows how incredibly fast this all happened. Anthropic kicks things off by open sourcing it in late 2024. Then by March 2025, you get the critical inflection point, OpenAI jumps on board. That was the signal everyone was waiting for. By the end of that same year, it's donated to the Linux Foundation, cementing its status as a neutral, open standard for literally everyone.
But okay, numbers and timelines are one thing. Where is MCP actually being used right now? The answer is, well, it's everywhere, especially in the places you can't see.
This quote from one of the co-creators of MCP, David Soria, it just says it all. The protocol's most important work, it isn't happening out in public on social media. It's happening inside companies, quietly wiring up AI to the kind of boring but absolutely essential systems that run the business world. Salesforce, Jira, internal wikis, private databases, all that stuff. And yeah, major companies are using it to solve some immense challenges. You take a place like Amazon, with tens of thousands of developers. MCP gives them a central, secure registry for all their AI tools. Or look at Uber. They have over 10,000 internal services, and they use an MCP gateway to automatically translate all of them into tools their agents can use. And then there's a company called Arcade, who's totally focused on safety, using MCP as a control plane to check permissions on every single AI action. I just love this quote from Arcade's CEO because it perfectly explains why having a separate, secure control plane is so critical. An AI can think about doing something dangerous, it can hallucinate all day long, but the infrastructure, that MCP layer, has to be the thing that stops it from actually doing it. You just can't trust the model by itself to enforce its own rules.
Of course, all this power isn't without risk. Security researchers have already shown that a really old web attack called DNS rebinding, which can basically trick your browser, could be used to make unauthorized calls to MCP servers that are running on your local machine. It's a pretty sobering reminder that even with a great protocol, developers still have to be really vigilant about security.
So where does all this lead? What's the bigger picture here? Well, MCP isn't just another technical standard. It's an enabler for a fundamental shift in how we build software, period.
And this, right here, is the big takeaway. In this new era we're entering, the most important skill for a developer is changing. It's becoming less about writing code line by line and much more about being an architect of goals. Your job is to clearly articulate an objective to an AI assistant that can then go and orchestrate all these different MCP-connected tools to actually get the job done.
Which really brings us to the final question, the how. How we connect AI to the rest of the world is largely being solved by protocols like MCP. The new frontier is the what. When an AI agent can seamlessly and securely use any tool you can possibly imagine, what will you ask it to do? What are you going to build?